Well, I am beyond excited today because I've got this rock star on my show today who is just off the charts, full of energy. She's doing amazing things in the world, and she is vegan, plant-based, and she's got an incredible story. So, Nancy, welcome to the show.
Are you ready to live the life you deserve? Do you want to feel vibrantly healthy and reach your optimal weight without dieting while being kind to animals and the planet? Then you're in the right place at the right time. Get ready to hear from doctors, nutritionists, experts, and everyday men and women committed to creating a powerful life in mind, body, and soul through ethical food choices. Welcome to Plant-Based Eating for Health with your host, certified plant-based nutritionist, Kathleen Gage.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
You betcha. And let's start with a little bit of your backstory, because I know that you had, people look at you today and they think, oh, she's so full of energy. She's got a great life. She's very successful. And yet there was a period in your life where it wasn't necessarily that way. So why don't you give us some backstory on what happened a few years ago and how you decided to actually turn your life around?
Okay, great. I tend to call it sometimes my moment of impact. Like, it's sometimes we have to have those moments that really pivot us to something different. And pretty much my whole life grew up, I've mentioned before, just trying to be skinny. It was kind of the thing. Didn't worry about my health or anything like that, and trudged along life just doing that. I was a realtor, got married kind of late in the game, had my son in my early 40s, and it seemed like everything was on the upswing in my life. And then suddenly kind of had the trifecta of events. My husband was diagnosed with stage 4 brain cancer, glioblastoma. At the very same time, I was a realtor, very successful. The market crash hit. This was 2008. And if anybody remembers those years, it was crazy. And I kind of went through those two things at the same time. And because they hit at the same time, I went bankrupt. And then sadly, I lost my husband in 2009. And for about 3 years, I rolled around in a bit of a fog. I was trying to show up for my son. I was trying to show up in a career that had completely shifted. And I was no energy, not feeling good. I eventually met somebody else and thought my life was kind of on the upswing again. And long story short there, a year later, we were engaged, and quickly he passed away from pancreatic cancer. And it was blow number 2. And I mean, I still, anyone has children and you have to tell your son that they've lost who they think is going to be their second dad, again, it is the worst feeling in the world. But what struck me, was that disease is taking away people we love every single day. And here I was, I'm vegan. I went vegetarian early on in my early 20s. The only thing I ate was kind of cheese. That's what kept me from being vegan. Connected those dots and went vegan in my early 40s. But I never was really focused on the health aspect. So after I lost both James and Peter, I went, wait a minute. People are getting taken away too early. And now God has entrusted me to be the single mom of my son. I'm already an older mom, and now I'm a widowed mom. And right then and there, I said, it's about my health. I've got to get healthy. And I committed to learning everything I could about food and how it supports and nourishes our health. I went to the Institute of Integrative Nutrition, and then the journey just kept going. I realized I have a great passion for this. And if we're going to take any action in our life, it's up to us. It's not any external force out there. And that's pretty much what pivoted me completely into this career.
Well, let's take a step back, because there's so much to unwrap there, and how devastating to have the love of your life die suddenly, and then the second love of your life die suddenly. I mean, that, suddenly anything under a few years is suddenly, and it's just, I can't even imagine. And So with the grief that you went through and you were vegan, you said you weren't really focused on the healthy side of vegan. Why did you go vegan in the first place? Let's unwrap that first.
Yeah, I really never connected the dots. I went vegetarian in my early 20s.
Mhm.
It is as clear as day the moment I did it. I was literally cooking dinner with my then friend, and I received a PETA magazine. And I had been all about the tuna and the dolphins. I had signed up for everything. And I received a PETA magazine that was on factory farming. And I read it and I went, I will absolutely not be a part of that. And I stopped that moment. That ride was very interesting because you can imagine way back then, not popular. I gained a lot of weight. And then I just kind of stopped eating things. And then it was trying to just like lose the weight. And then I went vegan. I actually went to a Humane Society convention in Washington, D.C. And somebody was there talking about the dairy industry. And I never really had connected those dots. I don't know why. And I just said, well, that's it. I cannot be a part of the dairy industry. And I stopped right then and there. It never was like, will I or won't I? It was, that has no place in my world.
Right.
And so that's how I went vegan. And then after James and Peter, that's when I really dove into the healthy side of plant-based vegan.
Now, did what they consume have anything to do with their illnesses?
So I'm very careful never to blame, right? Because God, I love them to pieces, and they didn't know. But I'm gonna say it had to play a part. My husband James, he was a meat eater. He would drink a liter of Diet Pepsi every day. And even then, back then, I knew that wasn't good. And he really didn't consume many plants, many vegetables. So is it why? I don't know. Does it play a factor? I'm going to say yes. And the same for Peter, very similar lifestyle, except for he didn't drink soda. But both of them, I think it's key. Both of them on the outside, seemed very fit and healthy. And so this was what really stuck with me was, you never know what's going on the inside of your body. You can appear one way, and unfortunately, we don't find out until those symptoms happen. And so my goal is to let's do some things before those come into play.
Well, you know what you just said, you never can tell what's going on inside when you look at the outside of somebody. That's true. And it's kind of like with a home, you don't know what's going on inside the household that people are covering up. And yet after a while, things start crumbling. And it's so interesting because recently I went out for sushi, and I'm vegan. So I order vegan sushi, and the people at the restaurant were so amazing. They were helping me pick choices. But what shocked me more than anything was how unhealthy the people who were the patrons of the restaurant, how unhealthy they appeared to be. A lot of obesity. And in the past, you didn't see that at sushi restaurants. You really didn't see a lot of obese people. And it's a part of our culture now. So what you're doing is so important. And I want to remind people that you're listening to the Plant-Based Eating for Health podcast show. I'm your host, Kathleen Gage, and I'm talking with Nancy Leeds Gribble. And Nancy, you went from being a vegan to being kind of not a real conscious vegan. You were still, before you went 100% vegan, you were still eating cheese. Then you connected the dots. And what I love about what you said is that it took a PETA magazine for you to really get it. And a lot of times people say, oh, you vegans, you keep shoving things down our throats and blah, blah, blah. And the reality is we don't know what we don't know. And when we finally realize what we've been doing, it's like a big aha. And myself, I was in the pet industry as a consultant for many years, and I was consuming meat. So here on the one hand, I was all about saving animals, being kind to animals. And on the other hand, I was eating them. And I really didn't connect the dots until I did. So with what you do in your business, tell us about your business and how you help primarily women get healthy. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I love what I do. I started initially with a strong focus on health. That is always my core. But every woman I talk to was like, I got to get my weight under control first. And I'm like, oh, okay, we need to tackle this. But I don't want you just to be skinny and unhealthy. And so how do we do that? One, I know we have to do a focus on whole food nutrition, incorporating more plants into our diet. I work with vegans. I do work with some non-vegans, but no matter what, I want you eating those plants. And then we have to know how to consume the right amount of our foods and the macronutrients, our proteins, our fats, and our carbs, so that we're going to maintain our energy. We're going to maintain our bone and our muscle, which is really important as we age. And that way we can kind of live longer, healthy longer. So I focus on both health and weight loss for women, and primarily in midlife and beyond.
Well, one of the issues that a lot of women have is that whole topic of body image, and that, we never seem to be happy with what we see in the mirror. And how do you work with your clients on helping them, first of all, to love themselves as they are, as they move to a healthier lifestyle? Yeah,
this is so key. The first and foremost is your weight is not your worth. Like, that is everything. It is one thing that it might be your health, but it is never, ever, ever your worth. So wherever you are on the journey, like, we have to love ourselves. We have to love ourselves for the things our body does for us. As women, especially, we've raised kids, we've built careers, we've had families. Our bodies have been there with us and through all of that. And we have to love and nurture them. And when we can do that, then our bodies will respond better. So we do have to work on the mindset. And then we work on the tangibles, to get people where they want to be. And it's not about a number on the scale. This is my favorite part of everything I do. We may look at the scale at the very beginning just to get a baseline. We may look at it months down, but it is not my priority. The priority is, how do you feel? How's your energy? How's your sleep? How do your clothes fit? How do you feel in your clothes? It's those kind of things, like, to really tune in to our body. And love it, and just love it across the journey. We all have those days where we look in the mirror and we go, what happened? And
then other days we look in the mirror and we go, oh.
I've been there. Everybody has it. I had to put a bathing suit on 2 weeks ago. I'm not going to lie. It's like, oh, hello, new season. But, and then I go, oh yeah, I'm on a journey of health. Health, if you continually focus on health being the most important, you can shed those negative thoughts away. And I am not the one who created this statement, but it's killing the fat, the FAT, and it's those false assumed truths that hold us back. So it's not just shedding the fat that's on our body, but shedding what's in our mind and how we perceive ourselves sometimes and what we think. And I just love that saying.
Yeah, that's awesome. And before we go further, how can people reach you? What's the best location online for them to find information on you?
Oh, yes, that would be my website. It's my full name, nancyleedsgribble.com. And then on Instagram, my full name, @NancyLeedsGribble.
Excellent. Okay, so let's say that somebody is listening to this, they're watching this, and they're saying, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to make a change. I've been, I'm an empty nester now. I have my first grandchild. It's like, and I'm not feeling my best. What would be a process you would take them through? So what would somebody be able to expect in working with you?
Yeah, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to have an initial call. I'd really like to get to know my clients and find out what they've done, what got them to this point, what have they tried, where do they want to be? Like, we have that initial conversation so that I know what their goals are, what their frustrations are, and how we can overcome that. And then I'm going to guide them. And it is true. Every day I'm with my clients. I provide daily accountability, and I guide them, teaching them about whole food nutrition, what that means. It's not about deprivation. It really is about abundance and eating more, but also you can enjoy the foods that you love. So I teach them how to eat for their body, their goals, their lifestyles. I nurture them so that they can do that. And then I also help them incorporate very efficient, effective exercises. This is not the days of long cardio. And I always say, if you love it, do it, right? But it's not the requirement. Strength training is kind of my thing. I love it. I think everybody needs to do it for our muscles, especially as we age. And I guide them with that. And sometimes I throw in some nutritional strategies, depending on what program they're doing with me. And we always work on mindset because, as you know, the saying, your body achieves what your mind believes. And many times our minds stop believing that we can achieve certain results. And I'm here to remind women, no matter their age, no matter what they've done before, where they've been before, today is a new day. And if they want it, they can achieve it. They have to do the work, but I'm there with them every single step of the way.
Well, I like what you said about they have to do the work. And I want to dig deeper into mindset because we have been brainwashed by the media, by advertisers, by just propaganda in general. And we're being led to believe certain things are healthy when they really aren't. And we're being led to believe that certain things are crazy when they're not. Like we're being led to believe as a society that vegans are radical. And compassion to me doesn't seem really radical. And yet from the outside looking in, people do see that. So let's really dig into mindset. What are some simple things that a woman can do? And I want to focus on women because you work primarily with women. What can women do as we age to really shift our mindset to realize that, I'm going to be 70 in a year. And I look at that and I go, well, I'm not the person I was at 35, thank God. But at 35, I was a bodybuilder. I was toned. I had like literally about 15% body fat and I was looking great. Well, I'm not that 35-year-old anymore, but I feel I'm doing pretty good for my age. And so what can I do if those little voices in my head say, well, you're getting old, you got a new wrinkle and all that? What can I do?
Yeah, we have to shift that narrative, right? And I always say, I say it two ways. This isn't your mama's menopause and it's not your mama's midlife, right? Like this is different. And the first thing is you use the tools that you have to shift that narrative right away. The minute you start coming up with, I'm too old, I'm too this, is stop. You have to stop it in the tracks. And we can't negate it. They're real thoughts, but say, it's never too late. I can do this. Seek out people that prove it. I think this is the number one thing. So many people, I mean, even for me, and they'll say, Nancy, it's unrealistic for people in their 60s and their 70s. And I'm like, no, it's not. Go look, go search. If you search, you will find people that are everyday people too, that are proving that anybody can achieve what they want. And age is really, really just a number. And it's not that we don't have to deal with, yes, of course, we have aches and pains. We have real issues. We are older, but it is not the hard stop that it was. And I think what happens a lot of time is when we're younger, we plan, we're going to have a family, we're going to have kids, we're going to have this career, and we just do. And then when we hit 50 or beyond, we just kind of become reactive in our life instead of proactive. And so we think, oh, it's just the way it is. But we have to shift that mindset and go, no, like it's not the way it is. I potentially have, you hit 50, you have 40, 50, 60 years still to live. And it's shown over and over that, if you want it, you can achieve it. And so it's just the shifting the mindset is really affirmations. I'm a huge believer in affirmations. I have a very strong morning routine that I get up and before I do anything, I do journal, I pray, and I listen to a morning mindset message every single day. Getting your mind right is key. And affirmations are great. Meditation is great. And honestly, seeking out people who have what you want, who have what you desire, who show you that, yes, we are changing the way we're aging. So I think those are some ways.
Well, I want to dig deeper into your morning routine because I have a morning routine also. And as I get older, my body is not as limber as it used to be. And I know for a fact, if I don't do my morning routine, I'm setting myself up for a bad day. I already know that. My morning routine consists of, I do yoga. And it's not hard yoga. I just turned something on YouTube. Jen Hillman is one of my favorite. Adrian, what is her name? There's Adrian, I think is her name, but real simple yoga just for stretching. Then I do meditation. Then I do journaling. I do reading and I do praying. And so that is a part of my morning routine. If I don't do the yoga, I'm stiff the rest of the day. So in knowing that, it's up to me to do it. So with your morning routine, what is it that you do and what do you advise your clients to do?
Yeah, so every morning, first thing, I'm going to say it, when you set your alarm to wake up, get up. Don't hit the snooze button 3 times. It just messes you up. Like set it for when you want to get it, wake up and get up. Immediately when I wake up, I drink 8 to 16 ounces of water. It's the first thing I consume. Coffee is not the first thing you want to have. It adds to cortisol and things like that. Then I do get my cup of coffee. I sit down. I have the pray.com app and I bring God into my world first. It's very important for me. And I listen to the daily message. I think about it and I meditate on it. After that, the very next thing I do is I have a mindset message that I have every day. I seek out a particular mindset message for where I'm at, and I listen to that. And the same thing, I do kind of a thought download. What are my thoughts? And how do I, how am I going to take action on what I'm learning? And then I write the 3 things for the day that I definitely want to get done. And after that, I do my workout. And then I get ready for my day. And that is pretty much I journal. And when I'm doing my thought downloads, that's me journaling. And that morning routine, it does take a little bit of time. And I get up when I was in real estate, I've got to say this, I'm too busy is the number one thing I hear for everybody. It's not even age. I'm too busy. I'm like, you're retired. How are you too busy? But everybody's too busy. And it really, just like we teach toddlers, like choose your words. I'm like, if you didn't say I was too busy, what would you say? And I'm too tired. I'm too frustrated. I'm too so many things. When I was in real estate and trying to get all this done, figure this out still, my days are wacky, right? You have no idea how they're going to go. So I knew I had to get up early. And I would get up at 4:30 to 5 a.m. every day, and I would start my routine. And I worked out in my garage. I moved my car out, and I was very committed to that. And that is my routine to this day. Even though now I'm at home and I can do whatever, it just sets me up. So you don't want, I'm too busy, take it off the table, get up earlier, make it a priority, because it really is when you start your day with your mind in the right place, and then you treat your body with some good movement, it just makes all the difference. And then you have your whole day ahead of you.
Well, let's dig a little deeper for the people who are listening, and you push some buttons there with I'm too busy, because that is an excuse that we use. We're all given the same 24 hours, and it's what we do with that 24 hours. And I know that for me, if I take that time up front to really get centered and grounded, my day goes much better and I get more done. For the people who they say, I'm too busy, I just don't feel like it. The big one is, I don't feel like it. I run on a fairly regular basis, and there are days that it's like 28 degrees out, 30 degrees out, 32 degrees out. And there are days I just don't feel like doing it, but I have to work through that and say, okay, what am I going to feel like if I don't do it? So for the people that are saying, I just don't feel like it, and they're saying that day in and day out, how do they break that habit?
Yeah, when we have that, when I have somebody who they really never feel like it, sometimes I get a little bit into the science of why they want to, but we break it down really, really small. Like, what can you do right now? And because they have to start getting into the behavior. It's very hard if our mindset is great, but you have to start taking action. So we break it down, like, what can you do? What makes sense? What are you ready, willing, and able to do? And I let them figure that out, because typically sometimes if I figure that out for them, they're still not going to do it.
Right.
And then once they do maybe a little thing, then we add on to it, and then we add on to it. And just like you said, you nailed it, is once you start doing it, and then you know how you feel, then the mindset becomes, how am I going to feel if I don't do it? Right now, I may not feel like I want to do it in the moment, but how am I going to feel if I don't? And for me in my life, I have non-negotiables. And one of them is, if it's a crazy week and workout, or I don't feel, everybody thinks, I want to work out every day, and I don't. I'm just as human as everybody else. And if I don't feel like it, I never, ever, ever allow myself to go 2 days, more than 2 days without it, ever. And I have a minimum that I never go under working out 4 times a week. So those are my non-negotiables for me. And I know how to watch it. But if somebody really doesn't feel like it, sometimes we have to do a little bit of digging deep and find out what's behind that. Some people are really afraid of change. They may not be happy with where they're at, but it's very comfortable. And even the smallest change can be uncomfortable. So we want to make it so that it's doable. You have to have a little uncomfortable, but it's doable, and you can make progress. Well,
and what I find interesting is when we make a change, the people around us are forced to change, whether they want to or not. And it's interesting when somebody will encourage a spouse or a significant other or a parent or a child to make some changes, and they don't really think the person is going to. But when the person starts making changes, they're threatened by it. It's like, oh my gosh, you're actually getting healthier. You're actually feeling better about yourself. And what can you advise to people based on the environment they're in, not being supportive to what they're doing?
That's a big one. And one that I hear a lot is like, I can't do this because my family won't eat this way. Or, especially as weird as it is, social drinking is a big thing. Mm-hmm. And drinking. And so people they're afraid they're going to lose their social fun partner or their dining out partner.
Right.
And that is where the person has to really dig deep. And this is the difference between, I want to be skinny and look good in a bathing suit, between I want optimal health so I can live my life longer. I want optimal health so I can show up with energy in my life and the life of my family and friends. And I want optimal health so I can be there for my spouse or whoever if needed. If I don't take care of me, none of that is going to happen, because it's too easy to then, if you don't have that deep conviction as to why you're doing it, mm-hmm. to cave, right? Like social pressure, environmental pressure, those are real things. So you start with, as I forget the name, Simon Sinek, I think, start with why. Start with your why. Start with why this is important. For me, when I made my shift, my why was, I'm an older mom with a young son, and he deserves to have the best mom show up. And what happened, like you said, is as I was showing up for him, I started showing up for myself.
Right.
And what's going to happen with people who don't have that support system, first, if they're working with me, I'm their support system. And then 2, they're going to start feeling it. And, you have to be careful not to put down or, start putting down other people for not being on the same journey with you. Just keep showing up. You don't have to talk about it. Just show them. Just show them. And people will come along for the ride, especially in your immediate circle.
Well, you definitely hit on one. I have been in recovery for 39 years, so I don't drink at all. And I know that when I made those changes, at first people were like, you need to change. You need to, clean your life up. And then when I started doing it, it was like they didn't know who I was. And I became responsible, accountable, all of that. And so, regardless of whether it's food, whether it's alcohol, whether it's shopping, whatever it may be, there are behaviors that when we start shifting, people will initially say they support it, but then we find there are those that don't. And then we find those that we least expected to support us. They're there saying, yay, they're our cheerleaders. So With all the research and all the studying that you've done, the certifications that you've gotten, what has been one book that has had the greatest impact on you?
Oh gosh. Honestly, I recently read Salt, Sugar, Fat.
Great
And
book.
that was really just an eye-opener of a book, in that kind of things that we knew about marketing deception and big companies aligned with government, like in your face, like how it really was happening, and really kind of understanding for women, and especially for women and people our age, not just women, but why we are the way why we think the things we think when it comes to food, when it comes to calories, when it comes to being skinny, why we think fat is bad, why we think, the labels are telling us the truth. Just crazy. That book was, I recommend everybody read that book. If you really want an insight into why you need to be your own nutrition detective, your own body investigator, read that book, and know that marketing is marketing, right? And
Absolutely.
I mean, some of the things that will tell you, like, it's got blueberries in it and there's not a stitch of blueberries in it. And I think one of my favorite sayings was, this was very surprising, the cheese cave. Did you read the book?
I did, and by Michael Moss, and he also wrote a book called Hooked, which is similar, but it goes into other details. So yes.
Oh, I have to read that one. The Cheese Cave. I was like, who knew that we were spending millions of dollars a month hoarding cheese? The government was. It's crazy. And so I think if people read this book, they will get a true understanding of, like, why it's important, why our whole foods are important, and really why it's important not to just rely on what you read on the front of a box as a
Absolutely.
label.
Yeah. The advertisers and the food manufacturers, they spend billions of dollars to convince us of something that is not healthy, not as true. It's not true, and it's not good for us. And Nancy, this has been delightful. Again, tell people how they can get in touch with you.
My website is nancyleedsgribble.com. And then on Instagram, they can follow me at Nancy Leeds Gribble.
Fantastic. Well, this is Kathleen Gage with the Plant-Based Eating for Health podcast show. I've been talking with Nancy, who is just phenomenal. And I encourage you, go visit her website. We'll put that in the show notes. And I encourage everybody, be conscious about what you're doing. Put good things in your body so you can live a very healthy life. Have a great day.
Thank you for your commitment to an ethical life through plant-based food choices. The kind of choices that are kind to your body, the environment, and most of all, animals. Be sure to leave a review and rating of the Plant-Based Eating for Health podcast show.